Hey everybody, it's Gypsy and welcome to On the Edge of Appalachia. Today is Sunday, March 23rd, 2025. And I am driving to the flea market to vend for the day. Please wish me luck. So anyways, I did a couple of videos yesterday on my way to the flea market. I guess the one video that I did about planting and growing grapes, specifically trellising them, somehow didn't, I guess, show up on anybody's algorithm. Nobody watched it, and therefore I did not get an answer. Now, there's one person I know who grows grapes, and I guess she didn't see the video, so I'm going to tag her, and that would be Sherry at Grow Joyfully. Really great channel. You guys should go check her out. So I'm going to tag her and see if I can get help from her, because today is Sunday. My grapes arrive tomorrow. So I'm going to repeat my question here. I've never grown grapes, and because of that, I'm kind of nervous about it. So instead of, buying 2 plants or 4, I just bought 1 just to try it out. They are Concord grapes. And I did some research, and I found that people, say to trellis them in a T shape. However, I have seen them on an arched trellis too. Now, I do have an arched trellis, but I don't know if it will work. It is definitely high enough, but width-wise, I'm not sure, because it's only maybe 2 or 3 feet. So, Sherry, I'm hoping you see this, or anybody else who knows about growing grapes. Will that work? And I am located in Northeast Ohio, which they say is now Zone 6A. I'm having trouble with that. But anyways, yeah, look at the frost all over. I woke up this morning to a hard frost. We had a rough winter. It was like I was saying the other day in my creativity update. I was talking about a painting I wanted to get started on, and how I was I'm addicted to mushrooms. Not like that, but creating mushrooms by crochet and sculpting and stuff like that. Probably do a painting. And I was saying I'm attracted right now to very bright colors, very springy stuff like that. And I think it was because we had such a rough winter this year. I'm even more anxious for spring than I normally am. So I wanted to, I want to create in all these bright colors and everything that has to do with spring. I did prep that canvas. It's just a small one. I'm doing a small. I'm trying to keep them small so people can afford my paintings, because it is a lot of work, and I don't want to undersell myself, which I usually do. But I also want people to enjoy my work. And I found that my greeting cards that I hand paint, people will buy those because they're anywhere from $10 to $15. And I had one young woman, she can't remember which painting she painted greeting card she bought, but I will sometimes get greeting cards that are made from watercolor paper that is sturdy. And when she bought it, I said, it's a blank greeting card. And she says, I know. She goes, but I don't want to use it like that. I want to hang it in my house somewhere. I want to display it somewhere in my house. It's so beautiful. And that really meant a lot to me. So I'm doing some small canvases. So I have the one canvas prepped, this little one. I think I'm going to do pansies on it. But anyways, yeah, I'm just very, very attracted to anything spring. So, yeah, it's very strange. Like, during the week, I'll be doing my gardening and my art. By the end of the week, I'm, like, anxious to get back to the flea market. It's like I miss it. But then, like, by Sunday, it's like, then I start missing gardening and arts, and I'm looking forward to Monday. It's really strange how that works. So, I was trying to think, there was something else. Oh, yesterday, the high was 44, but when I woke up at 6 a.m., it had already reached the high. It just kept dropping all day long. Every time I stepped outside, it was colder and colder and colder. And then we started getting little tiny snow flurries. It was brutal yesterday, and there was no sunshine. So now we have a few days of nice bright sun, but it's only going to be in the 40s. Like, I think right now it's about, I don't know, low 20s to mid 20s, and it is like a little after 8 in the morning. But I think our high is going to be like 45 or something. But at least we have sunshine. The warm weather and sun, that was just like false spring. And so we're back to, reality here. So we're going to be cold for a while. So it's like, I just appreciate the sun. And then when we get to the end of the week and it warms up into the 60s, then it's going to be raining. So anyways, I am anxious to get back to gardening. I just really need to know my grapes. They arrive tomorrow. Then I have a bunch of seeds arriving from MI Gardener, which should have been here last week, but the post office messed up. I don't know how they managed this one, but they say they're coming tomorrow now. So anyways, I was thinking, because I was talking, like, about my family who has passed over. Yesterday I was talking about that. About grief. I had a lot of training from hospice because I decided I wanted to volunteer for hospice. Well, I figured, volunteer, no big deal. Well, apparently to them it is, which it should be. Really, I had to go through 6 months of really intensive training. I mean, and I'm not talking once a week. I mean, and it was always like in the evenings for people who were working. It was very, very intensive. And our hospice here, which our big one is Hospice of the Western Reserve, they just love their volunteers. I mean, they treated us so well. And to them, they didn't call us volunteers. They called us unpaid employees because they said our job is so important and they needed us so much that we were like employees. And, we didn't get paid, but man, did they do some extra special fun stuff for us. We had so many benefits in good times. It was wonderful. But anyways, the training was very extensive, very interesting, but grueling. But anyways, naturally, one of the things we learned about was grief, which ended up being a really good thing for me because I went through this training a few years before my son died, which was my greatest, most difficult loss. And, I've already lost a lot of people in my life. In fact, what prompted me to want to work with hospice was when my aunt died. But yeah, I've lost a lot of people. But of course, naturally, a child is going to be the more difficult loss, no matter what age your child is. So anyways, I think that was kind of like one of those divine timing things. Because it really, that training, that knowledge helped me get through that loss and to go easier on myself. Because, Elizabeth Kubler-Ross, an amazing being. Where would we be without her? Especially with all the losses. Because, grief is not solely about, people in your life dying, losing loved ones. It could be about loss of a job, loss of a home, loss of this. It could be about anything. You go through the grief process. And that's one of the biggest things we learned in hospice. So, I think especially at this time to talk about grief, it's important. And I do view these changes going on in the world as changes for the better. Obviously, there are those who don't agree with me, and that's okay. What's not okay is, violence toward living beings or things is not acceptable. There's got to be a better way to process your grief and anxiety. I'm not a doctor, but I'm just thinking there must be. But yeah, grief does not necessarily have to do with you losing a loved one. But, before I had the hospice training, you always heard the stages of grief. And they sound, especially, how else could she have worded this? It sounds like there's steps that you go through. And they're like linear and whatever. And it was such a relief to learn this, because I would have thought there was something wrong with me later on, when my son passed. Because it's not. Okay, now what we learned, they showed us a diagram, which was a huge tangled ball of yarn. And they said, although they say, grieving process, it stops, it's not organized. Okay, it's not like straight. It's, kind of like the one step forward, two steps back kind of thing. So you go through these different stages, and next thing you know, you find yourself a stage or two backwards, or what you perceive as backwards, or what society perceives as backwards. And it's nothing to worry about. It's normal. You are going to go back and forth in your grief. Do not worry if you see that, all right, you're back to stage 1 when you had just made it to stage 3, whatever. It's very important. Go easy on yourself. Take care of yourself. Another big thing we learned is everybody's grief process is unique. Very unique. It's not going to be identical to someone else. There is no time limit on grief either, which before, in the past, they used to think there was, which made me feel bad for my grandmothers, because both of my grandmothers lost children. And it was like you were just supposed to get over it and go on. You had to hide it well. I'm hearing it was my maternal grandmother. You had to hide it well, your grief. It's like, did you have to wait for everybody to be gone or go hide in a closet and cry? She's saying yes. And that's how it was back then. My aunt died of what we think was polio, because they didn't know at the time, at the age of 4. Now, my paternal grandmother, she had a baby boy who, in spirit, is a pain in the butt to me, who died at 6 months from what sounds like SIDS. And then later in life, my dad died of cancer. So she had 2 children, and it does not matter how old you or your child is. Okay, that's another thing. The age doesn't matter, nothing like that. You cannot go by that. So anyways, that's the way my grandmothers had to handle it. And I think that's sad. But there is no time limit. Now, there is something called profound grief. That is when you get stuck and you are not living your life. And, I can understand at the beginning it was hard. I mean, well, a week later, I was in such shock after my son died. I was out going to flea markets or to garage sales because, I was just in shock. But yeah, there is a time where it's like I couldn't leave the house. After that point, after the flea market thing a week later, I couldn't leave the house. I just, I had a good friend of mine, she said, the world's not going to go away. And she was right. So if you find yourself stuck at that point and you don't have another wise woman in your life or anybody, a wise man to tell you something like that, you have to watch, because you can get stuck at that point where you don't want to leave, you don't want to associate with anybody. That goes on too long, then you're into profound grief, and you should, seek help. I did go see, after my son died, the most amazing therapist. She was great. She lived right around the corner from me, and her spiritual beliefs were just like mine, so she was able to help me really well. And it was funny because when I mentioned to my cousin, I think I should go see a grief counselor therapist, and my cousin she inherited this woo-woo stuff too. And she said, all right, she goes, just be careful, try to find somebody who matches your beliefs, because if you don't, it could be dangerous for you. So I took that advice, and it is always good to find a therapist who either has similar, especially spiritual beliefs, or has very open mind. Okay, because if they're not, all right, say you're an evangelical Christian, going to a therapist, especially when you're dealing with the grief, the loss of a loved one, it probably wouldn't be helpful to you to not have someone who is similar in that manner. Anyways, you don't want to get stuck in the profound grief. But always remember, it's not a straight line. You're going to go back and forth. You're not crazy. Also, like the timeline, okay? Some people grieve longer than others. It depends on the griever. And secondly, the relationship you had with the person who is now deceased. Which is a word I don't like because it doesn't make sense to me. Come on, baby, don't. Yeah, there we go. There was a squirrel. All right, and the title of your relationship, whether it be like nephew, cousin, child, whatever, really has no relevance. What has relevance is the quality of your relationship. How close were you to that person? Because just because you're a certain relation, even friend, it doesn't matter. Whatever they were in your life, it does not dictate the quality, the closeness of your relationship or lack thereof. So that's gonna have a bearing on the depth and length of your grief. So what I'm saying is, don't ever let someone else tell you how you should grieve, when you should be done, etc. And I don't even care if it's a professional. Unless you're stuck in that profound grief where you're not living your life, then, just do what feels right for you. Because even professionals, they don't always understand. They don't. Some of them just aren't good. I've come across quite a few of those. But man, the therapist I had for grief counseling, it was several years ago. Boy, was she good. So what I'm saying here, because I was thinking about this yesterday, because I did talk, my mom was the last person in my life who died. And she died on December 8th, 2023. It was, what, not even a year and a half ago. And there is someone else who watches my videos who 6 months later also lost her mother. And there was something she said that kind of made me start thinking about the grief process. It's like, you cannot, all right, like I can talk about, and from the beginning, I could talk about my mother's death very easily. Other people might have a harder time with that. It's all based on circumstances, personalities, etc. Do not beat yourself up over it. Grief is not something you should judge yourself on or others on. Okay? That's all I wanted to say about that. So I'm seeing Lake Erie from here, almost to the flea market. So I'm going to leave you guys with that. It's a beautiful, cold day here in Northeast Ohio. Blessed be, and make it a joyful one.